Call Haloyam Yahweh, Bahasham Hamashiach Yahushai. This is your fellow servant, Tazawar from the GMS Orlando camp, here with another lesson. First, I want to start off by giving all glory, honor, and praise unto Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, whom rule well, and from whom we learn His truth. Shalom to you, Akim, who are not in GMS, but are pushing likewise doctrine in spirit and in truth with all sincerity. To you few sisters that are listening and learning, as well as you speckled birds who are scattered among the nations, looking like those nations. To the 144,000 elect men and the rest of the hopeful elect, to you I say, Shalom. This will be part 2, all right, of a video I already put out called Understanding Seed. So this video will most likely be entitled Understanding Seed Part 2. Right? And in the first video, in the previous video, I went into, the breakdown of the word seed in both the Hebrew and the Greek and their definitions. All right. We also spoke on how that seed is tied to families or houses through the males, all right, of that sire line. Okay, so this lesson will expound on that, but there will be an added element that we will address, and that will be accounts in the scriptures where men have taken on wives of other nations. Okay, where men have taken on wives of other nations, and what certain scriptures really mean. Like the scriptures in Deuteronomy 23, we'll touch on that. All right, to where it says we should not make marriages with the heathen. Okay, so we know those things happened in the scripture. So lesson 1 again is to solidify that though we know these things have happened, that does not discount the offspring of such relationships being Israelites. This is going to speak to why it is or was frowned upon in that time. Okay, so without further ado, let's get into the lesson, and let's pull up the book of Exodus, the 34th chapter, and the 11th verse. The 10th verse. We go ahead and start at 10. All right. I'll read to about the 16th verse. This is Exodus 34 and 10, and it reads, "And he said, Behold, I make a covenant before all thy people. I will do marvels, such as have not been done in all the earth, nor in any nation. And all the people among which are among which art Salakia, and all the people among which thou art shall see the work of the Lord. All right, for it is a terrible thing that I will do with thee. All right, I'm gonna read that again because I stumbled. And he said, behold, I make a covenant before all thy people. I will do marvels, such as have not been done in all the earth, nor in any nation. And all the people among which thou art shall see the work of the Lord Yahweh, for it is a terrible thing that I will do with thee. All right. Observe thou that which I command thee this day. Behold, I drive out before thee the Amorite, the Canaanite, and the Hittite, and the Perizzite, and the Hivite, and the Jebusite. Take heed to thyself, lest thou make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land, whither thou goest, lest it be for a snare in the midst of thee. All right, I'm going to pause there. This is where we start to get into why the Lord told us not to marry and mingle ourselves among the other nations. Okay? So this is the reasoning behind what the Lord said. Okay? Like I said, in the first video, we went through, again, Numbers, right? The first chapter, 18 and 19, where it talked about the Lord commanded Moses to assemble all of the congregation in their pedigrees by the house of their fathers. That was a commandment from the Lord, all caps. So that's Yahweh, all right? So this is how Yahweh understands and is pushing for us to understand him and how he made seed and the purpose of it. So this is why, what we're reading here is going to explain why he told us not to make marriages with them, okay? Because we are allowed to have concubines, and there's a difference. I'm going to read 12 again. It says, take heed to thyself, lest thou make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land whither thou goest, lest it be for a snare in the midst of thee. But ye shall destroy their altars, break their images, and cut down their groves. For thou shalt worship no other God, for the Lord Yahweh, whose name is jealous, is a jealous God. All right, this is why. Lest thou make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land, and they go a whoring after their gods, and do sacrifice unto their gods, and one call thee, and thou eat of his sacrifice. All right. And thou take of their daughters unto thy sons, and their daughters go a whoring after their gods, and make thy sons go a whoring after their gods also. Right? So that's the point in 16. Okay? So what the Lord's trying to convey here in Exodus is the covenants that you make with other nations. All right? Marriage is a covenant. Okay? True marriage is a covenant. All right? And how does one marry? Well, you take a wife, you pop her, right? The blood of her virginity seals the covenant between the man and the woman, and the twain become one, just like Adam and Eve in Genesis, right? The two shall become one, which is what? A joining of families. Okay? That's a joining of families. That's a covenant, a promise, an agreement, a bond. All right? So that's what it's talking about here in verse 12. Take heed to thyself, lest thou make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land whither thou goest, lest it be for a snare in the midst of thee. What's the snare? What's the snare? The snare is what? The other deities, the other gods, right? So Yahweh commanded us to do what? To break down and destroy their altars and their images, and to cut down the groves. So the altars is what they sacrificed on, the images is what they bowed to, and their groves is where they did a lot of their customs, like the temple harlotry, right? Orgies and all that type of stuff. Okay, sacrificing of children. Okay, so the altars were housed in the groves. Okay, anyway, it says, for thou shalt worship, this is verse 14, for thou shalt worship no other God, right? This was the point. For the Lord, whose name is jealous, is a jealous God, right? So Yahweh is a jealous power, man. And then it says what? Lest thou make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land. There it goes again, same as in verse 12. And they go a whoring after their gods. Who's the they? The they is the Israelites. Go a whoring after their gods, the gods of the other nations, and do sacrifice unto their gods, and one call thee, and thou eat of his sacrifice. Right? So this is why we were not to make covenants with those other nations. And this is also why during our journey out of Exodus, right, when we were making our rounds, the Lord had us destroy those other nations, right, and burn with fire, man. Okay? Verse 16, here's the point. And thou take of their daughters, all right? So you let's go back up to 15 real quick. It says, and they go a whoring after their gods, and do sacrifice unto their gods. And one call thee, and thou eat of his sacrifice. And thou take of their daughters unto thy sons. Right? And their daughters go a whoring after their gods. So the women that you marry go a whoring after their gods. Right? They stick to their customs that they were raised in. Right? And make thy sons go a whoring after their gods. Okay? This is in Exodus 34. So we see a very similar thing as we will read on in Scripture. Let's go ahead and push it forth. Let's grab Deuteronomy chapter 7 and 3. Chapter 7, 3 is the point. Let's do let's start at 2, right? If you read up at 1, it just lists a bunch of the nations that the Lord does not want us to join to. All right, so Deuteronomy 7 and 2. And when the Lord, Yahweh, thy power, shall deliver them before thee, thou shalt smite them and utterly destroy them, and thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor show mercy unto them. Right? So again, we're to make no agreements, no bonds, no treaties, no marriages. All right? We're not supposed to show them any mercy. Let's see. Obviously, that's not in this time because we're not running through different nations conquering. Right? Verse 3, neither shalt thou make marriages with them. All right? Thy daughter thou shalt not give unto his son, nor his daughter shalt thou take unto thy son. Right? So that's the whole thing. We're not supposed to make marriages. Let's get this word marriages and see what the breakdown is. Khatan, right? Khatan, marriage. It says what? To become a son-in-law, make oneself a daughter's husband. Wife's father, wife's mother, father-in-law, mother-in-law. To make oneself a daughter's husband, right? Strong's definition, it says to give away in marriage. Hence, generally, to contract affinity by marriage. Join in affinity. All right. Father-in-law, make marriages, mother-in-law, son-in-law. So that's the joining of two families, so you can understand. All right. We're not supposed to join families with them. And why is it important not to join families? Again, because each nation, as I said in the previous video in part 1, right? Each nation has a spirit on them, has a particular spirit, and each nation also has their own gods, their own gods that they bow to, their own deities. All right. Verse 3: Neither shalt thou make marriages with them. Thy daughter thou shalt not give unto his son, nor his daughter shalt thou take unto thy son. Here's why. Verse 4: For they will turn away thy son from following me, that they may serve other gods. So will the anger of the Lord Yahweh be kindled against you and destroy thee suddenly. All right. And then it says what? But thus shall ye deal with them. Ye shall destroy their altars and break down their images and cut down their groves and burn their graven images with fire. Right? Why? Destroy all of that stuff so we wouldn't be tempted to bow to it. All right? But this is why we were not to join ourselves unto them. Okay? There's only one other, that's the main purpose. But let's go back to Deuteronomy in 23, just in case somebody want to bring this out. We're going to start at 1. All right? Because this, in this chapter, this is specifically speaking on two particular nations. All right? And it says what? Persons excluded from the assembly. Okay? Now we know, look, Moab and Ammon, all right, or Ammon and Moab, they came from Lot. Right? And Lot was a righteous man, but he came back as an Israelite, all right, in his regeneration. Okay? But again, that vessel of Lot was used at the time to sideline in two other nations, whom are Hebrews, but they're not Israelites. They're Moabites and Ammonites. All right. So let's read about them. This is Deuteronomy 23 and 1. And it reads, he that is wounded in the stones, right, or hath his privy member cut off, shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord. Right? The point's in 3. Verse 2. A bastard shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord. Even to his 10th generation shall he not enter into the congregation of the Lord. All right. An Ammonite or Moabite shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord Yahweh. Even to their 10th generation shall they not enter into the congregation of the Lord forever. Okay? So just like 7, the number 10 goes into completion. That's why it says, that's why at the end it says forever here. Okay? And why? Here's the why. Because verse 4, because they met you not with bread and with water in the way when ye came forth out of Egypt, and because they hired against thee Balaam the son of Beor of Pithor of Mesopotamia to curse thee. All right. Nevertheless, the Lord thy God would not hearken unto Balaam, but the Lord thy power turned the curse into a blessing unto thee, because the Lord thy God loved thee. All right. Thou shalt not seek their peace nor their prosperity all thy days forever. All right. And that's the other point. When we keep reading on, we're not supposed to make covenants or seek peace with them. Okay. And what does it mean? And then it says, nor their prosperity. What does it mean to seek peace through their prosperity? All right. Or why does it mention both? Because making a peace treaty or a pact with another nation, just like we see happens today, right? You get trade relations. Okay, so imagine imagine America, the US, and Japan. Two total different nations, right? Now, we know in the automotive world, Japan sends many of their goods over here. They have a booming auto industry, which a lot of that money goes back over to Japan, right? When you look at anime and manga and all of that stuff, all those things come out of Japan, right? There's some cultural aspects that overlap. Okay? Now, there's a peace treaty there between the two countries, even though America dropped two nuclear bombs, nuclear warheads on that nation. So America actually subdued them into that state of peace. Okay? But this is where that relationship comes from. That's what it looks like, the trade bonds between the two people. Right? If you look at, now compare America to Russia. Right? Because really the Japanese, they supposed to be mobbed up over there with China and Taiwan and all of them. Now, China also has some relations with America, but they're putting distance between the two. But if you compare the relationship between America and Russia, ain't no agreements, ain't no peace treaty, right? There's an agreement not to go to full blown war. That's been long standing. As long as certain parties honored certain deals, certain guidelines that were set forth. But we know that America is breaking them. And not to get off topic, but that's just to let you know, Russia is an enemy to America. All right? And there's no peace treaties, there's no covenants or anything made like that between the two nations. There's actually sanctions. America's put sanctions on Russia. All right? Anyway, that's just to give you some insight or something that you can kind of, something from today that you can kind of utilize to frame, get your mindset on what the Lord is saying here. Okay? Now, let's go up to back to verse 2. It says, a bastard shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord, right? Even to his 10th generation shall he not enter into the congregation of the Lord, right? But it doesn't say what? It doesn't say forever. It just says 10 generations. But let's go into that word bastard, right? Which means mamzer, right? Mamzer. And it says what? a bastard, child of incest. All right, illegitimate child. So a child of incest is considered an illegitimate child. This is why in the scriptures, there's laws pertaining to whom you can and can't marry, who you can't lay with. Like a brother can't lay with his sister or marry his sister, right? From either his mother's side or his father's side. Not just the father's side, but it includes the mother. A brother can't lay with his mother, right? A son can't lay with his mother, rather. Right? A father not supposed to lay with his daughter. Okay? So when you go into this, and then you also see how the Lord works. Hold on, let me go back to that. Getting ahead of myself here. But there are examples where, again, incest, including one of the things, like you can't lay with your father's wife, right? Or a daughter's not supposed to lay with her father-in-law. A woman is not supposed to lay with her father-in-law, even though that's not her biological father-in-law. You see? So these laws exist. All of those offspring, if children were conceived out of that type of union, would be considered what? Children of incest, bastards. All right? The relation is too close. So you can understand. That's an illegitimate child. Right? Now when you go here to B, it says what? Mixed population, figuratively, right? And then it says what? Born of a Jewish father and a heathen mother, or vice versa. Well, this was input after, and we know, you know how we know that? Let's go down to, because the Lord don't contradict himself. All right? Now men will contradict themselves, but the Lord don't. So when you go to the actual, so it says outline of biblical usage, but then when you go to the Strong's definition, right, or the, let's see, it says a mongrel, right? Mamzer, let's keep going. Brown Driver Briggs Lexicon. It says what? Incest, right? So, and it gives you like in the Hebrew, it says specifically child of incest, right? Mamzer, noun masculine, bastard, specifically child of incest. Late Hebrew, incest. Aramaic, which is a long word, same thing, bastard, incest. Okay? And then it says what? Perhaps, it gives you one, the first definition, it says literally a bastard. Deuteronomy 23:3. And why does it point to that verse? Deuteronomy 23:3. Right? Let's go back. It says, now we read up here in verse 2 where it says bastard. And then when you go to verse 3, it says an Amorite, Salakia, an Ammonite or Moabite shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord. Even to their 10th generation shall they not enter into the congregation of the Lord, Yahweh, forever. So forever. So there's no way they can get in. Right? One, they're not Israelites, but the important takeaway here is Ammon and Moab were both children of incest. They're illegitimate. That's why it says forever. So not even just to the 10th generation, they can't get in ever, because they're literally offspring of bastards, right? Because we know Lot's daughters got him drunk and slept with him. Yes? All right. Y'all can go back and read that account in Genesis. Okay? After the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. Now let's go back to this interlinear here. And I want y'all to hold in the back of your mind, I want y'all to hold this mixed population. You see where it says B, it says mixed population figuratively, right? Because we know in reality there's no such thing as a mixed person, according to Yahweh himself, based on how he told pursuant to Numbers, the first chapter, right? He said to declare the pedigree by the house of their fathers. So technically there's really no mixed people, no mixed persons walking around. You are what your father is. And that's thus saith the Lord, because that command was given from the Lord in Numbers 1 and 19. Okay? Okay, so let's go back and I think that's all I need from there. But I want y'all to hold that mixed population. Okay? So now let's go to Nehemiah. Right? The book of Nehemiah. 13th chapter. The point I really want to read 15 through 27. But let's start at 1 and go through 1 through 3. Let's read 1 through 3 real quick, just since we on that. This is Nehemiah 13 and 1. On that day, they read in the book of Moses in the audience of the population, and therein was found written that the Ammonite and the Moabite should not come into the congregation of God forever again. Right? Why? Because they're bastards. They're literally children of incest. Verse 2, and here's the icing on the cake. Because they met not the children of Israel with bread and with water, but hired Balaam against them, that he should curse them. Howbeit our God turned the curse into a blessing. Right? Now, when you read in the previous chapters, Nehemiah is going, he's combating what we first brought out with the sons of Israel. All right, those men taking on daughters of other nations. But let's read this, verse 3. Remember to hold that word mixed multitude, right? Now it came to pass when they had heard the law that they separated from Israel all the mixed multitude. All right. Now somebody could say, "Oh, we got you. Ain't no mixed kids. All right. Ain't no place for children to have Israelite fathers and heathen mothers." Well, let's get this word mixed multitude. Right? This is why it's important to go into the meaning of words. And what is that word? Right? It says Arab or Arab, which we know today as Arab. Right? Arab. That's that word.
Strong's H 6154. Arab. Arab.
Right? You see how I try to put the V on the end? Is Arab. All right. Ain't no E's in the Hebrew. I rob. Okay. And it means what? Wolf. As mixed, interwoven, knitted material, mixture, mixed people. Right. So people might be like, oh, stop right there. Hold on. Read on. Mixed company. All right. So in definition 2, so like if you look at definition 1, it's going into clothing and material. When you look at definition 2, it's going into people, right? Those that dwell upon the earth. It says mixture, mixed people, mixed company. Now, what does it mean by mixed people? Well, we already just said, and I'll say it again, from Numbers, the first chapter. You know what? Let me just get it. Let me pull it in this, on this one. Numbers 1 and 18 and 19. Right? And they assembled all the congregation together on the first day of the second month, and they declared their pedigrees after their families by the house of their fathers, according to the number of the names from 20 years old and upwards, by their polls, as the Lord Yahweh commanded Moses. So he numbered them in the wilderness of Sinai. So we know that Moses was one of those men that spoke directly to the powers, man. All right. He spoke directly to the heavenly powers. So he was the individual before Yahweh Shai that was the intercessor. So he interceded on our behalf. So it was given to him. Let's read that again. As the Lord commanded Moses, so he numbered them. Right? How? By the house of their fathers. So they declared their pedigrees by their fathers. So that was a command that came from on high. All right, that's no light thing. Now, so this proves there's no mixed people. So when we keep reading and we get this word Arab H6154, it means what? Mixed company. All right, mixed company. Then it says what? Mixed multitude. Now let's go down here let's read the Strong's definition on this too, but we're going to get clarity from the Brown Driver Briggs lexicon, right? And it says what? Arab, right? The web or transverse threads of cloth, right? Interwoven, okay? Also a mixture or mongrel race, right? And then it says what? Arabia, okay? So there's each race, a race can't be mixed, all right? That's like having a mixed ethnicity where you can't. This is the true definition right here where it says mingled people, mixed multitude. Okay. Well, let's go down just a little bit more to the Brown Driver Briggs lexicon. Let's open it up and see what it says. It says mixture, mixed company. All right. Mixed company. And then it expounds upon that by saying a heterogeneous body attached to a people. All right, to Israel. Okay, so in Exodus 12 and 38, then in Nehemiah 13 and 3, the Egyptians, all right, the Chaldeans. All right, so it's giving you examples, but mixed company is what that means. All right, heterogeneous body attached to a people. That word heterogeneous means two types of, basically it goes into two types of people, two genes, two ethnicities that's among a huge body. So you can understand, when I was coming up, they used to call America the melting pot, right? The great melting pot, because all nations were here, right? Just like people today say, oh, I'm American, but they can be Chinese, they can be Arab, they can be so-called African, they could be Scottish, Swedish, French, right? German. They can be East Indian, right? But all claim to be American. So this is what it's saying. So when you understand the congregation is the body of people, right? The assembly is that congregation, the assembly of the people. All right. Now that we know it's a heterogeneous, mixed company, right? And then it gives you examples here. The Egyptians and the Chaldeans who clung to Israel after we came out of those lands, right? Now let's go. Now, I hope that brings some insight to y'all. Now let's jump down to this one longer than the first one. Salakia. Now let's jump down to 15. Right? And I'm gonna close out after this because I ran over. We're gonna read Nehemiah 13, 15 through 27. In those days saw I in Judah some treading wine presses on the Sabbath, and bringing in sheaves and lading asses, as also wine, grapes, and figs, and all manner of burdens, which they brought into Jerusalem on the Sabbath day. And I testified against them in the day where they sold victuals. Right? There dwelt men of Tyre also therein, which brought fish and all manner of ware, and sold on the Sabbath unto the children of Judah and in Jerusalem. Right? So that's both kingdoms, northern and southern. Right? Then I contended with the nobles of Judah and said unto them, what evil thing is this that ye do and profane the Sabbath day? Did not your fathers, right, thus, and did not our God bring all this evil upon us and upon this city? Yet ye bring more wrath upon Israel by profaning the Sabbath. Right? And it came to pass that when the gates of Jerusalem began to be dark before the Sabbath, I commanded that the gates should be shut, and charged that they should not be opened till after the Sabbath. And some of my servants set I at the gates, that there should no burden be brought in on the Sabbath day. So the merchants and sellers of all kind of ware lodged without Jerusalem once or twice. Then I testified against them and said unto them, why lodge ye about the wall? If ye do so again, I will lay hands on you. From that time forth, they no more came on the Sabbath. Right? And I commanded the Levites, supposed to be the priests, right? Or are the priests, that they should cleanse themselves and that they should come and keep the gates to sanctify the Sabbath day. Remember me, O my God, concerning this also, and spare me according to the greatness of thy mercy. Right? So now Nehemiah gets into these things. In those days also I saw, Salakia, in those days also saw I Jews that had married wives of Ashdod, of Ammon, and of Moab. Okay, bastard. Ammon and Moab, remember, are literal bastards. And their children spake half in the speech of Ashdod, and could not speak in the Jews' language, but according to the language of each people. All right. And I contended with them and cursed them, and smote certain of them, and plucked off their hair, and made them swear by Yahweh, saying, Ye shall not give your daughters unto their sons, nor take their daughters unto your sons, or for yourselves. Right? And here's why. This goes back to the beginning of the lesson. Did not Solomon, king of Israel, sin by these things? Right? By what? Making marriages with them. Why? Let's keep reading. Yet among many nations was there no king like him, who was beloved of his power, of his God, and God made him king over all Israel. Nevertheless, even him did outlandish women cause to sin. All right. Shall we then hearken unto you to do all this great evil, to transgress against our power, our God, in marrying strange wives? All right. So I took you through Exodus, right, 12 through 16, to tell you that the women was going to be the ones who pulled the men away from their power. Those strange women, the outlandish women, caused the men of Israel to sin by following after their gods, those heathen customs, right? Anyway, that's the point. I ran over, by 16 minutes or whatever. Anyway, I pray this lesson was edifying. I pray that it finds you well. And until next time, Shalom. Wa Ababa Ball.